Hey guys, it's Mr. Schmidt here, and in this video, we're going to look at the characteristics of perfectly competitive labor markets. So in the last video, when we talked about the circular flow model, we said that in a modern market economy, there are both product markets and factor markets, right? And in factor markets, those are the markets for resources like land, labor, and capital. We're going to spend the rest of this unit looking at labor markets specifically. And just like product markets, factor markets can have different market structures, right? So remember, in product markets, we had perfectly competitive uh, product markets. We had monopoly, we had monopolistic competition, and we had oligopoly. The good news is that in this unit, we're only going to focus on perfectly competitive labor markets and monopoly labor markets, which are called monopsony. Okay. Now, are there monopolistically competitive labor markets? Of course. Are there oligopolistic labor markets? Of course. But we're only going to focus on those first two. And so we're going to take the next several videos to look at perfectly competitive labor markets, starting with their characteristics here. So, there are four characteristics that define a perfectly competitive labor market. The first one is that there are many small firms hiring workers. Okay, so remember in product markets, there were many firms, and here in the perfectly competitive labor market, there are also many firms. And you're going to see that a lot throughout this unit where a lot of what you've learned with perfect competition and monopoly in the product market units will apply here with perfectly competitive labor markets and monopsony. Second, you've got many workers with identical skills. And that word identical is very important here because if workers had non-identical skills, that might influence what workers get hired, and it might change the value of each worker's labor. Whereas in a perfectly competitive labor market, the value of every worker is essentially the same because they all have the same level of skills. The third one is that workers are wage takers. So remember, in perfectly competitive product markets, firms were price takers, right? They had to take their product price from the market. And so workers here are wage takers. They have to take the wage that the labor market gives them. And later on in the unit, we'll show that with a perfectly competitive labor firm, in addition, side by side to the perfectly competitive labor market. So workers are wage takers. They take their wage from the market. They do not get to pick their wage. And the reason is because there are so many workers with identical skills that if the market's telling me that I should ask for a $5 wage, but I choose to ask for $8, my employer is just going to go to the hundreds of other workers that are willing to work for that $5 wage. And because my skills are identical to those other workers, I don't really have any bargaining power here. I can't say I'm better at this or that because we're assuming all workers have identical skills. And finally, the wage is constant, right? Every worker, as I said before, has to go with the same wage, whatever that number may be. So that's all for this video on the characteristics of perfectly competitive labor markets. Until next time, have a great day.